Hello my loves. So a long time ago now, I did a video talking about comparing Kindle and Kobo as someone who had been using Kindle for like 10 plus years and had then switched to a Kobo, and basically just looking at the differences between them and whether I regretted switching or not. And so at that point, I think I'd probably only had the Kobo for like a month or two. I'd obviously been using it a lot. My opinions are still genuine. I had only been using it for a couple of months, and I just wanted to sort of reflect and talk on my experience now after having used it for about a year as my main sort of e-reader, and give sort of an updated view and review of it. So this video is not going to focus as much on like the comparison between Kobo and Kindle. This is more just a review focused on the Kobo itself. But if you do want a little bit more about that comparison and sort of maybe the differences between them, by all means go and check out my previous video about it. Before you do, some of the information in that video is no longer accurate, mainly the information about being able to like transfer your books from a Kindle to a Kobo. The way I talk about doing it in that video, you can no longer do. Amazon removed that capability. Amazon have made it exceedingly difficult to be able to transfer your ebooks to other devices. It is still possible if you have a physical Kindle device from before a certain year. I can't remember what year it is, but I'm not really sure whether I should be suggesting people do that given the lengths that Amazon have gone to and are still going to prevent people being able to do that. So if you are considering switching, or you still have some books on your Kindle that you'd want to move over, definitely do not Google how to remove DRM from Kindle books 2025 using Calibre and a physical Kindle. Like, don't do that. But Amazon shittery aside, as I said, today we're going to be focusing specifically on the Kobo, my thoughts on it, what it's been like using it as my like exclusive e-reader pretty much for the past year, and whether I would still recommend it as a good e-reader device. So if you are considering switching, or if you're completely new to the e-reader world, hopefully this will help you in sort of deciding what device to go for. An obligatory note as well to say, this is not sponsored in any way. If any Kobo representatives are watching this and do want to sponsor me, hit me up. So just for complete clarity, I have the Kobo Libra Color 2, which has the color screen and also the stylus compatibility with it as well. It doesn't actually come with the stylus. That's something you have to buy separately, but I did buy that because that was one of the main draws for me in this device. So I will also be able to sort of talk about how that works with like annotating, highlighting and all of that. So let's start with the positives of what I actually enjoy about this e-reader. I think the biggest positive for me is definitely the UI. I am 100% very superficial when it comes to my devices. I care mostly about the way that UI looks, but also obviously how it functions. And I do personally find this device very user-friendly. I know I said I didn't want to compare too much to Kindle, but I will say I do find this more user-friendly and I do find it nicer to look at. There isn't a load of ads or pushy recommendations to buy more books. The home screen is really focused on your books that you already have recommendations from your library, with like one small bit about books that you may be interested in purchasing, but most of it is your books that you already have. It's also really easy from the homepage to just go straight back into what you were reading previously. You can obviously look by book specifically, you can make your own collections, you can look by series, and depending on what you've been reading, the home screen will maybe suggest different things from them. So it might suggest specific authors if you've got a lot of books from them, it might suggest specific collections that you've made, or series if you've, you know, started one and sort of haven't finished it. It feels like tailored to your reading, but again, what you already have, rather than sort of encouraging you to constantly buy more. The UI is incredibly smooth in my experience. There's like little to no lag. I have seen some people talk about like the refresh rate not being that great and it leaving, I can't remember what it's called, when the image or the text from the previous screen, when you like change page, is still there. Is it bleeding? Is that what it's called? I personally have not found too much of an issue with that. In comparison to other e-ink devices, I think it's kind of similar. There's always going to be some level of that unless you have the refresh rate up high to refresh every single time you turn a page. I don't really feel like that's necessary. I think it mostly shows up for me when I am scrolling through books and it's the book covers that remain kind of bled into the screen, but it doesn't really obscure my vision, and it does refresh itself depending on the settings you've set up. I personally find it runs quite well, find the refresh quite smooth, and yeah, the UI very quick, it loads very fast, just really easy to use. Sort of going off on that, I have also seen some complaints about the like sharpness of the black and the text when you're reading because of the fact that this device obviously has a color screen. I think the screen's fine. I've never really noticed any difficulty with the text itself seeming grey or washed out. It's never really caused any eye strain for me or anything, but I do appreciate not only is that going to be a personal thing depending on your specific site, but it also could be a device thing. I have seen there have been maybe some inconsistencies with the screen across devices, so I can only talk about my personal one, which is that it's absolutely fine. I did not get this because I particularly wanted a color screen. In my personal opinion, color screens on e-readers are more of a novelty. I don't think it's really necessary unless you read a lot of comics. If you're just reading standard books, I think color e-readers are a bit of a gimmick personally. Like, yeah, it's nice to be able to have the book cover in color, and for this specifically, like the annotating is quite nice to have the different highlight colors, but other than that, that was not the draw for me with this device. However, I've not found any issues with it being a color device, which I was concerned that I might have. And honestly, it has been quite nice to have the option of reading comics. I read a few last year on here, and it was quite a nice experience to be able to have that option. Yeah, the colors are a little bit washed out. They're a little bit more like pastel-y almost than like really bright, but again, that's just the nature of an e-ink screen. I think I've seen people say similar things about every color device regardless of what brand it is. It's good, but it's never going to be the same as like, you know, a tablet or an iPad screen, you know. My main draw for getting this was, like I said, not because of the color screen, it was because of the annotating feature and the ability to use the stylus. It was so worth it. It is wonderful. I absolutely love being able to write my petty little thoughts on things while I'm reading, and then being able to go back and see what I was thinking the first time I read a book. Way easier than sort of like typing out notes like you would on e-readers that don't have the annotation function. Writing out notes is still fine. I got by doing that for many years, but it just feels like a nice little upgrade. The stylus, in my opinion, is fantastic. It does exactly what you need it to do. It's calibrated quite well, that I've never had any issues with it at all, really, in terms of like scratching the screen or anything. I know I should have a screen protector, but I don't. It hasn't really caused any issues for me. Probably me like chancing my luck in saying it's not caused any issues, so it's fine, so I'm just not gonna get a screen protector. I know I should, but it hasn't caused any issues for me personally. I would still recommend you get a screen protector. There's not as many options for the stylus itself like in the book when you're annotating things. It also has like a notebook section, and there is far more option for the pen settings itself in the notebook. Like you can do pencil style, highlighter style, marker style, just like regular ballpoint, or it's got like a calligraphy pen as well, which I really like. Whereas when you're actually annotating, it's only got like the ballpoint pen style. You can still change the pen thickness, you can change between a few different colors, but it's quite a limited amount of colors compared to how many you can use in the notebook. And then you've got your standard highlighting colors. For me, that's enough. If I'm just going through and annotating a book, I can do enough with those more limited options in the actual book part. It would be nice to have those other options as well, and I'm not really sure why those options can't be put over into the actual books as well. There's probably some kind of technical reason for it that I'm just unaware of. It doesn't make a huge enough difference to me that I really care. I'll be completely honest, I don't really use the notebook feature very often. I've seen some people use it for like their annotation key while they're reading, or like more detailed notes or reviews of the books they've read on their Kobos, which I think is a great idea, and it's really good again to just have that straight in the device to be able to do that. I just personally haven't really used it too much, and I don't know that I really will, but again, it's a nice feature to have. The battery for both the stylus and the device is decent. I can't really comment too much on like specifically how long the battery of the stylus lasts me, because honestly I can go weeks or months without using it at all, and then like heavily use it for like a week. So my usage of it probably doesn't reflect very well on the actual capabilities of the battery. I don't really feel like I have to charge it very often. I feel like in the time that I've owned the device, which as I say is, I think has been a bit over a year, I've maybe charged the stylus like 4 or 5 times, maybe. Might even be less than that, I'm not sure. It hasn't been an inconvenience to me to have an extra thing to charge. It charges up very quickly. The actual device itself, the battery life is really good. I would say I do have to charge it a little bit more often, but I do always have Wi-Fi on. I'm not really sure why. I don't really need it on. I would say I have to charge it like maybe once a month, maybe slightly more than that. Again, it depends how much I've used it, because you know there's going to be times where I'm reading a lot of physical books and it's just kind of left there. For both of the devices, I feel like it's one of those things where I'm surprised when I have to charge it because it lasts so long that you kind of forget. It's almost like back in the day before iPhones, when you had like your brick Nokia and you'd be like, oh shit, I need to charge this. It's been like 3 months and I haven't charged it. It's kind of like that. They last well, even with me having the Wi-Fi on all the time. I think another one of the main positives for me is just kind of like the freedom that you get with the Kobo of being able to sideload books. Now obviously this isn't maybe as big of a deal now that Kindle are making it, or sorry, Amazon are making it a lot more difficult to download books from there if you've owned them previously. But of course Amazon is not the only place you can get books online. I think most people will sideload their books through Calibre, which is like a software you can get for your PC, and you can sort of put books in there, and then when you plug your Kobo in, you can just sort of drag them and upload them straight into your book. It's really, really handy. I can't remember what the website's called. They're called like Standard Ebooks or something. They basically have a load of classics and older books that are now in public domain. It's kind of like Project Gutenberg, but they have like formatted them fully to be an ebook. They've added a cover to them and everything, so it's just like a slightly nicer experience. I've got a load of free books through there of public domain works, and you can just so easily then drag and drop them onto your device, which is amazing. Also, there's another feature where you can link your Google Drive to the Kobo, and it'll basically like create a folder in your drive where if you put book files in there, you can then just go on your device, you can find the book in that folder, and it will just download it to your device. So I feel like that's a good way for sideloading books but not having them take up space on your actual device, because you can just leave them in the drive and then download them when you want to, and then sort of remove the download if you want to. There's a few different ways to sideload, and all of them are very easy once you're used to them, and I just appreciate the flexibility of being able to do that and how easy it is. I just feel like there's more freedom with the Kobo. There's more integration of different things. There's a lot of other like news sites and things like that you can just integrate directly into your Kobo from the settings. I don't really use that because I'll be honest, I don't read the news. I'm up to date with what's going on and it depresses me, so then I stop keeping up to date with it. But I've heard a lot of people find that feature really useful. The other main feature that is wonderful is the overdrive functionality in it. I do appreciate in the UK this might be slightly less useful for us because as far as I'm aware, most of our libraries use BorrowBox instead of Libby. I do have a library card with a US library, and so having the overdrive store or like being able to browse the library directly in my e-reader and either put holds on or download books directly from that is amazing. It makes it just so much more convenient, so much easier. I do really, really wish more UK libraries would use Libby because it would just make my life so much easier. Even if you use the app, like if you place a hold on something and then it's available, it should just show up directly in your library once it's available and you've borrowed it. But that does kind of lead me into some of my negatives and things that I don't like so much about the Kobo. Unfortunately, the Kobo does just have a few really irritating bugs, and one of them is with this overdrive feature. Not super often, but sometimes if you get a book on the Libby app, it just will not show up in your library on the Kobo. At least this has happened to me a few times. Remember specifically when I borrowed Jane Eyre, it was there in the app, and then every time I tried to like resync my device, it wasn't there. I tried searching it in the overdrive bit, and it was like, someone else is borrowing this at the moment. And I was like, yeah, it's me, give it to me. Sometimes it just doesn't work, and through research and like looking on Reddit, basically is what I mean by research, other people have said they've had this happen to them a few times as well. It hasn't happened to me for quite a while, so I don't know if that's something they've fixed, but it definitely seemed like it was an ongoing bug that had been there for a while, and it was just quite frustrating because it's such a convenient and helpful feature to then just randomly have it not work sometimes is really annoying. Another very annoying bug, which they say they've fixed and they have not, I don't remember if I mentioned this a year ago. I in fact might have done, because I know it was a problem a year ago when I made my previous video. There's just really annoying bugs with the wish list, specifically in the app. If you add a book to your wish list, some books it just won't show me the price of. It will just say they're free, and then you go to download it and it's just a sample of that book. It's not actually the book, and it just won't let you buy the book from the store if you've added it to your wish list, and I have no clue why it does it. You can do it from the website fine, you can do it from you can't do it from the app if you've got an iPhone. You can buy it absolutely fine, just not on your device. Apparently this was a bug that they then fixed, and so any book that you added after that point would be fine. Any book that you'd added previously still had that bug. They said that, so I removed everything to add it back again to try and fix it, and it's still the exact same. So I've kind of just given up using the wish list on the actual device itself. It's just really annoying, especially if, you know, at the beginning of the month when new books go on offer, if you want to check to see if anything from your wish list is on offer and you just want to quickly do that on your device and download them straight away, you just can't because it just doesn't work, and it's really, really annoying. There have also been a few times where the entire device is just frozen and like it literally won't do anything. You have to do like a full reset to get it back on, and it takes quite a while to do that. In the time that I've owned my Kobo, that's probably, I think, only happened 3 or 4 times, so it's not like it's happened that often. But if we are comparing just for a moment to Kindles, no Kindle device I've ever owned has done that. There's just some annoying little bugs sometimes. Another sort of annoyance, which I wouldn't necessarily say this is a bug, it's more just a problem with the programming or how it's designed, is the syncing between your device and like your phone. If you have the Kobo app, is not the best. Sometimes if you've read on your phone and then you go back onto your Kobo, it will know that you've done that and sort of prompt you to go to where you were on your phone, but often it doesn't. And I have seen like discussion around this, that there are ways to make it more likely that it will do it. So for example, every time you finish reading on your device, to go back to the home screen and then lock it from there, and then if you read on your phone, it should sync when you're on the home screen, but if you just leave the book open, it probably won't. While that's not a huge deal, that's just kind of annoying to me that I have to do that for it to be able to sync. That feature doesn't work great, and I don't think that's an unintentional bug. I think that is just how it works. I hope they improve that at some point, because it could be so much better. It would be really handy. It's been like that the whole time that I've had it, and everyone's comments on it seem like it's always been the case that it's been like that, so I don't hold my breath that they're gonna fix that. I said obviously that the main reason I got this was for the annotating, and as much as for the most part I'm really happy with how that function works, one thing that I think is really missing from Kobo devices is like an annotation or notes notebook like they do have for Kindle. So on the Kobo, if you do want to go and see your previous annotations or highlights, you have to go into the book itself, and then it will have like, I suppose, a notebook for that book where you can see all of your annotations and notes for it. That's okay, that works fine, I guess. So the issue that I mainly have with it is if I borrow a book from the library, it's a bit hit or miss as to whether when I then open like the preview of the book, whether it will have my notes and annotations in it. 9 times out of 10 it doesn't, and so I just kind of lose all of that. Again, going back to like the Kindle annotations notebook, for example, even if you've borrowed a book either through libraries or Kindle Unlimited, they remain in that notebook. All of your notes and annotations and bits you've highlighted remain there, and it's just nice to have that all there so you can see it. And I really wish Kobo had something like that, because they either just disappear or I have to go through each individual book to try and find the bit I was talking about, whereas just having it all in like one place would be helpful, especially where they've got the notebook feature already. I feel like it wouldn't be that hard for them to add that in, but I don't think that's a feature they will add. It's just a bit of a frustration. And then in terms of like the physical device itself, obviously the device is bigger than a lot of e-readers because, assuming it's because it needs the space for you to annotate, and also it's got the page turn buttons. It's still pretty lightweight. It's, you know, it's not heavy, it's not super uncomfortable to hold, but I do find it a little bit more inconvenient than like smaller, more traditional e-readers. It just feels like it takes up too much space, and it can feel a little awkward to hold at times. And I think that's predominantly because of the page turn buttons. I'm sorry, but I do not care for the page turn buttons. And I know, everyone loves the page turn buttons. I don't like them. They're okay. It's not like I hate them and refuse to use them, but I just find it a little awkward to find a comfortable way to hold it and still be able to use the page turn button. And maybe that is because I am secretly a very old woman and have quite arthritic hands. Maybe that's a me thing, that I find it a bit uncomfortable, and after a while the joints in my thumb will start hurting. I would just prefer if I didn't have them. I know a lot of people really like having the option of page turn buttons, so I think that is probably just a me thing. If you have small hands like I do, if your hands are prone to random aches and hurting, you might struggle with it too. The final thing is specific to sideloading, so if you have no intentions to sideload books, then this isn't really going to be an issue. If you sideload books using Calibre specifically, you can put series details in there, so you can say what series it's from and what number of books it is, and it should sync. So I have a lot of books, for example, that I previously had when I had a Kindle that were part of a series, and then I've bought further books from the Kobo store, and regardless of the fact that on Calibre I've got all the settings set up right, and it's got the right series name, it's got the right number, I have it set up to sync properly whenever I connect it. I've done the thing where you unplug it and plug it back in, it just does not sync, and then I go to my series section and it's like two different versions of the series and not all the books are in the same series collection, and it's really irritating. It doesn't irritate me enough for it to like really bother me, but it is kind of irritating because I do like having the series feature, but I just don't really use it because I can't trust that it's accurate. And it's the same for like if you've borrowed a book from the library and it keeps it, I mean, admittedly I could just remove the books from my device, but I have so many random series that are just because I borrowed one from the library and then maybe I borrowed the other one at a different time, or I bought the other one, you know. The series function just doesn't work very well in my opinion. It doesn't sync very well, and I suppose that's not just for sideloading, because it does also count the library and sort of overdrive side of things, but it's just notorious for not really syncing very well, and I know that's not just me, I know it happens to a lot of other people as well. With all of that said, would I recommend buying a Kobo? Yeah, I would. However, I would caveat that by saying I don't think there's actually a huge difference between a lot of the different e-readers on the market. I think there are certain things that are going to appeal more to other people versus not, and I think that's something that we can only decide for ourselves, which e-reader, which book ecosystem is best for us. And personally for me, I feel like that's Kobo. I would say the two things that are most important to me is the UI and the ability to annotate, and Kobo offers me that. I do think whatever e-reader you pick is going to depend on what personally you find important, and also the prices of things. Let's be real, that's probably the biggest thing that a lot of us will consider is the price. Pick what's right for you, but I would say despite the negatives that I mentioned here about Kobo, I have had a really nice time using it consistently. Much prefer it to my Kindle, and I'm really happy I made the switch. I hope this has been helpful if you have been considering buying a Kobo, and specifically the Kobo Libra Color 2. I have tried to cover everything, but if you have any specific questions about things that I didn't mention, please do ask, or sort of share your own thoughts on sort of the Kobo. If you have one, there might have been things that I didn't know about. Go away or let me know things in the comments. That is all from me today though, so I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.